Hey there, it's Laura here from Laura's Creative Pages and Cards, and welcome to day 14 of the 31 days of cards, where we're going to make this happy birthday card. So this one is in the portrait, and we're going to need this piece of gingham print, which is cut at 1.5 wide by 5.5. We're also going to need a piece of lagoon card cut at 2.5 by 3 3/4. A little piece of this decorative balloon print at 1 3/4 by 2.5, and then you'll also need a lemonade piece cut at 1 1/4 by 4.5 for the stamping. And then the zip strips that come on the top of each of the paper packs, this one's got the happy birthday, so we're going to use this blue happy birthday that's taken from the zip strips. So we're using everything out of our paper pack. Alright, so let's get going on making this card. So the first thing we need to do is attach this gingham piece of paper to the front of our card, and I'm just attaching it 1/2 inch from the left hand side of the card. So from the spine of the card, 1/2 inch in is where I'm going to place this gingham piece here. Then I'm going to grab my lagoon piece of cardstock, and before I actually attach this to the card, I want to add the stitching detail to it, because this little bit of detail just adds a little bit more of a fun and wow factor to the card. So I'm just stitching around all 4 sides. Okay, now that it's stitched, it's time to add it, but we're going to add this one here with the 3D foam tape. So I've got the narrower of the 2 rolls, and I'm just leaving it at that particular width, and I'm just going to place 3 pieces onto this particular size rectangle. So 1 at each end and 1 in the center, and I do just bring it in a bit from the edge, just so that it's got an even amount of raise throughout that rectangle there. Now that that's on, I'm just going to line it up, and it does overlap the gingham a little bit, and then also overhangs onto the white daisy card. Once I'm happy with the position, that's when I press down firmly onto the foam tape. This card here has also an outline detail with the black journal pen, and as I've said in the past, I hold it firmly in my fingers and I actually drag my hand down the mat, and I find this is a much easier way to draw on the journal border. Okay, I've finished that now, and I'm going to need to add on the decorative piece of balloons next. Before I stick this down directly onto that lagoon card, I'm going to give this also a bit of a stitched border detail. So this time I'm doing the straight lines, but once I've got these straight lines on all 4 sides, I'm just going to give it a couple of little stitch lines over the top. So you're just drawing those lines on all the way around, and then choosing a couple of spots on the lines just to give it that little stitching extra detail. Now that's done, I'm going to attach it to the lagoon just with the double-sided tape, and keeping this particular piece flat, so no 3D on this particular piece. Okay, I've got that one done, and the card has almost finished. We're up to the stamping now. So what we're going to do is grab that lemonade piece of card, and we're going to use black, and we're going to stamp the happy onto this. So this is that outline happy off the stamp set, and I'm just going to stamp this in the middle of the yellow, because I'm going to fussy cut each of these letters out. So I just need a good coverage of that black onto that piece of yellow, the lemonade card, and with the excess yellow at the other end, this is where I'm going to stamp 3 of the little stars. So we only need black ink for this entire project, because we're using the colored card to create the wow factor. Now that they're all stamped, I just needed to fussy cut each of these letters out of that piece of cardstock, and each of the stars as well. So as you can see, I use my left hand to rotate the image around, and I keep my right hand and the point of my scissors in the one place, and this is how I tend to fussy cut. And I also leave a little bit of a border around the edge of each of the letters. This just hides my imperfection in cutting. When I'm cutting out a really fine little image like this, it's the same thing. I keep the point, the tip of my scissors still, and I'm actually rotating with my left hand. You can see there I'm rotating that image around and around before I press my blades of my scissors closed. This is how I've taught myself to fussy cut, and it has taken me, you know, a little while, a lot of practice to get better at it, but it's definitely my the best way of fussy cutting for me, is to actually move and manipulate that little image around and around, and keep my scissor blades in the same place. Okay, so that's all of the components for this card. There's nothing else that we need for this card except for the, there's the zip strip happy birthday, but that's all the stamping and fussy cutting done. So I'm just going to lay out my letters onto the card just to make sure they fit as required, and then just place my stars in the positions I want to put them. I often like to lay out my card before I start sticking down to make sure I've not missed anything. Okay, and then I'm just going to bring in that zip strip, just that little piece of that little happy birthday, and I'm just going to dovetail this. So finding the center, I just cut a little slit and then come from each outer corner, meet it in the middle, and just take those little triangles out. And I'm going to edge that with black pen as well. Okay, so all of the letters are foam raised. So from the appy, no H involved, we're just going to give it a single layer of foam tape, because as you will have remembered, we've already foam raised the lagoon card. So I just want a single layer of foam. But with the H, we need this one to be double layered, because all of the appy is going to be a single layer of foam on top of an already single layered foam card, whereas the H is on its own. So I need to double layer the H so that that will all be the same level across that word. Okay, so I've stuck them all on. I've put little tiny pieces of foam tape in on the back of each of the stars as well. Really little bit fiddly, but totally worth it. So I'm just attaching those with the little bit of foam tape. I've attached all of the letters as well, obviously with the foam tape. And I will be also attaching the happy birthday zip strip piece with some foam tape as well. So adding that dimension to the card, it just makes it, you know, pop and just look a little bit more special. Okay, so the happy birthday, just grabbing one length of the foam tape, and this time I'm actually going to cut that piece in half because it just needs a really narrow bit of foam tape on the back. It is paper, it's not actually card, so it really doesn't need a lot to hold it in place. And then I'm going to add that over the top of the decorative balloons, which is just fabulous. So we have a happy birthday. And the last detail I'm going to add to this card is I'm just going to use my journal pen to add a few little black dots beside each of the stars. So 3 dots in a triangle shape around the star, and that's the last detail on this card, and that is card 14 done. So I hope you enjoyed this design. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Bye now.